Hi, I'm Elizabeth Johnson, co-president of the Manhasset Chamber of Commerce, here to give you the latest updates on the coronavirus pandemic and how it impacts your life. I had the opportunity to speak with the Superintendent of Manhasset Schools, Dr. Vincent Butera, to discuss how education has changed and the impact this pandemic has had on the district.
Thank you so much for joining us on this special edition.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, Liz.
Well, schools have been very much impacted by this pandemic. And I'd like to know, what is the typical school day for a child attending Manhasset schools? And I know that's kind of hard because you have everything from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade.
Yeah, well, certainly the typical school day is much different than it ordinarily would be if we were physically in school. And we've been out now for 2 months, and the typical school day has changed during that time. The early stages of our closure, which we deemed phase 1, was really geared towards getting us up and running. And over the course of really these last couple of months, we've evolved that plan to really provide students more time with their teachers, more live time, more structure. But it certainly is much different than the typical school day is when we're physically present. And I'm more than happy to talk more detail with you, Liz, if you wish.
Sure. Thank you. Is the day starting at 8 o'clock in the morning like it used to, or is it a little bit different? Because
there is no formal start time and end time.
Okay.
Really, the complexities of a remote environment really make it difficult to sustain in essence, a simulated school day from home.
Right.
You have not only issues with access to broadband. In many cases, we have families with multiple children and multiple parents working from home.
Right.
So those difficulties, coupled with faculty difficulties, really made it difficult to sustain a physical or an actual school day. Not to mention the amount of time that we want students logged on, especially some of our younger students. So the plan that we evolved into really provides time for teachers and students to connect with one another, to provide for explicit instruction, to provide support for kids, but it's not within the construct of a start and end time.
I see. So do the children connect with Zoom like most other people are going to that particular platform? I know there are others out there, but it seems like Zoom is the one that's the most used.
Yeah, we are using Zoom. Early on, the first 2-3 weeks, there were some concerns related to safety, some concerns related to the compliance issues. Many of those have been resolved, where we were able to get the assurances we needed to move forward. So for now, primarily the use, the interactive device vehicle is Zoom.
Okay, great. So now with this change in learning environment, you had said earlier to me that you had met with each section of the school's parents, K through 2. Can you tell us a little bit more about what was discussed during these sessions?
Sure. The first couple of weeks when we were entering the digital and remote world, I was getting quite a lot of feedback, and the feedback was not only from parents, the feedback was also from faculty, and it was clear people were going through a lot. So when we evolved into phase 2, which did increase the amount of connection, certainly at the elementary school, we also wanted to make sure that we had a deep understanding of how the plan and the virus was affecting our families. So what we chose to do was to hold a series of parent sessions We held them on 6 consecutive days at 4 p.m. And we broke it up. We met with K to 2, 3 to 5, grade 6, 7 to 9, 10, 11, and then seniors on their own. And really the intent was to, one, connect with our families, which was obviously much more difficult in this world. Two, provide information which we wanted all families to have. And thirdly, to really gather feedback from parents, their perspectives on how things were going. So those conversations, coupled with some faculty sessions we had afterwards, really shaped phase 3, which is the current model we have. But the intent was to really understand how the plan, as well as the virus, was affecting our families, because what I had heard throughout this entire closure was quite a range on the continuum. We had families that were significantly affected from the virus situation. So to simply impose a model and say, this is what it is, without really understanding those concerns, that we didn't think was acceptable. So we spent a lot of time listening, and we evolved into phase 3, which is what we have now. And this will be the phase that we continue on for the remainder of this school year.
Okay, and I'm assuming that the school year will end just like the school calendar was published. Is that correct?
I can't say it absolutely will be as our school calendar is published. These past couple of months have been impacted significantly by Governor Cuomo and his executive orders. You know, our calendar called for a spring break. That was removed, so there was no spring break. Our calendar called for Regents exams. There are no Regents exams.
Right.
So a lot has changed. We do anticipate that there'll be guidance with respect to the end of school. So as of now, we're following our school calendar, but we do anticipate there may be further guidance from the state on end of school dates.
Speaking of which, I know that Governor Cuomo has asked to reimagine education. And I know that he reaches out to a lot of different people. Have you provided any, thoughts on that to him, or is that something a little bit that hasn't come down to that level yet?
Yeah, certainly with respect to those discussions between superintendents and the governor, that would be handled through the state council of superintendents. My understanding at this point is that the governor hasn't engaged in those conversations with school superintendents. It was an idea that I know he put forth, but as of now, I certainly don't have any information that he's reached out to school superintendents.
Oh, thank you for that. I have a question. I know that we have in our district a variety of income levels, and some are, at need, at risk. Not everybody has a computer. How is that managed? Because I'm sure that the SEA assisted in that, and your terrific staff put together a project plan to alleviate that situation.
Absolutely. We've had 2 communications with families for anyone needing a device. To date, we've distributed over 300 plus devices to students and families requesting those devices. There have also been questions regarding broadband, and we provided access and support with respect to Wi-Fi accessibility. So our Executive Director for Pupil Personnel, Allison Rushforth, working with our Director of School Counseling, working with our social workers, school psychologists, counselors, have really been at the forefront of connecting with our families and those students who we feel are more at need and at risk, to make sure that we're providing as much as we can during this time, not only from a device standpoint, but also from a food standpoint as well.
I know this pandemic has affected everybody, but in particular, the graduating seniors are impacted. I know that there's a plan in place because Dr. Schlanger is on the job, as well as I'm sure all of the teachers are. Can you share with us what's the projected plan, which we'll see how it rolls out, because this pandemic is just unknown what's going to happen.
Sure. Yeah, our seniors have certainly been on our minds throughout this entire closure. You come to the end of your school K-12 career, and you look forward to a number of really moments such as the ones that we're going to be speaking about. So for us, we were holding out hope that the tail end of June would be open for some events. Obviously, what's materialized over the last number of weeks has certainly indicated that that won't be the case. About a week and a half ago, Governor Cuomo did issue the order that schools will be closed through June. So at that point, that those options were taken off the table for in-person, celebrations, through June. However, what we promised the senior class and what we promised the parents of the senior class is that we would explore every possible avenue to make sure that these moments that they so look forward to are provided. So we did reserve a date in the summer for a prom. Whether or not that date will hold remains to be seen. But Dr. Schlanger last week, after the governor issued the order to close for the remainder of the year, Dr. Schlanger did meet with a group of student leaders. He is meeting with a group of student leaders, parents, faculty, and such to really start talking about how do we look at graduation, how do we look at frolic, how do we look at a number of these events and provide them in a different form, and what are the options for doing so. So really at this point, that's where we are. We have certainly a little bit of time, but not much time to celebrate those before the end of June. However, if there are options that extend into the summertime that make sense, then we're open as well. We don't want to take any option off the table. Our goal is to provide these moments to our students. It's really a matter of what form it takes. So we are in discussions. No plans have been finalized for frolic or graduation at this time, but we are looking to find ways to celebrate with our students.
That's great. I know that you guys are definitely always thinking outside the box, and I'm sure that something extremely creative will come out of this. One of the things I know that students have been doing, or at least, and I don't know how it's working right now, but the AP tests are coming up. Are they still holding them at this time? They are?
Yeah, they are. College Board actually made that decision a little while ago that they would actually go to in-person exams. Students would take them on their computers at home, and they were shortened. They were shortened for sure. And those exams are moving forward.
That's interesting. And can you tell me a little bit about the ACT or SAT? Are they still going forward, or are they suspended?
I know dates were issued for the ACT. I would have to check, Liz, on those dates. But as far as in-person testing, that obviously is not going on right now until further notice. So, but I would have to get those new dates to you. I believe Dr. Posse would have them on him.
So, I just wanted to know that they were actually going forward at this time, which is kind of a challenge as well. I'm sure. So I understand that Governor Cuomo has changed the date of the budget vote, school budget vote. Can you tell me what is going on with that, and how Manhasset School District is handling that?
Sure. We put forth a budget proposal on March 12th. It was actually our first budget hearing, and several days later, we know what happened. So since then, we were waiting for guidance from the state as far as the date. We were also waiting for guidance with respect to state aid, which is always a concern. And the governor recently did state that districts could expect a significant cut to their aid. Manhasset does not receive large numbers of dollars with respect compared to certainly some other districts, but we do receive $5 million in state aid, which is certainly not insignificant. monies. So we don't yet know what that state aid picture could look like for the upcoming year. There was talk of doing sort of a rolling determination as to whether or not how much monies would be provided, which obviously makes it very difficult to budget. The other concern is the impact of the virus situation on our families, and whether or not our families could sustain and support an increase that was at the levy cap, which this year is 2.9. Our budget is 1.94. So our budgets over the last 12 years have been roughly around 2%. So it's been very, very conservative. This situation here, if we did see a significant cut to revenue, would force us to make certain decisions. So at this point, we are in the process of and we'll be discussing it with the board tonight, what is the tax levy increase that the community and the board would support? And then how do we work with not only our expenses, but also our revenues to really present the budget that is at that number? So tonight is really a follow-up to last week's meeting where we started talking about the budget. And the intent is that by the end of this week, and certainly by May 21st, we have our budget finalized, because on June 9th, we are, as well as all districts, are going to be having their vote. But this year it will be done by absentee ballot. It will not be done in person. So we need to mail absentee ballots to all 13,000 voters.
So that is a tremendous goal. And it will be interesting to see how it plays out. Wow. How are you going to manage that? I'm just, I know that you've done mailings before, but I don't know. The magnitude of this one seems tremendous.
Yeah, it's significant. It's significant, and certainly, our team will come together and get that done. But it certainly does add an increased cost to the whole budget or election process, I should say.
Right.
But the executive order was clear with respect to the absentee ballot route. So it's now our responsibility to execute that vote.
When the vote will occur supposedly on June 9th, but the fact is that people will be mailing this stuff in for a while. When do you think that the cutoff date will be to determine whether the budget has passed or not?
Well, June 9th at 5 p.m. is when all the ballots have to be received.
I see.
So
okay.
That's the date. And then it really is a matter of how long it takes from the time 5 p.m. goes to open and count all the ballots. So we would expect that by the next day we would have a determination.
So since we have to social distance, I'm assuming that people will get a number of ballots to count at their home, or is that the intention, or it will be?
Not necessarily. We haven't made that determined yet. We do have a rather large gymnasium where if we needed to set that up for counting, we certainly could.
Okay, that's interesting. So now with this pandemic going on, I know that obviously the teachers are still in place and a lot of administrative workers are there, but there's a lot of other workers. How has the school been impacted as far as keeping people on the payroll or furloughing them?
Yeah, well, that wasn't an option. Certainly, my understanding, certainly from the governor. So a number of our faculty and staff members have been working from home.
Yes.
Our custodians and maintenance staff have been rotating in as well.
Okay.
Our TAs in some cases have been working with students. But as far as furloughing students, again, as furloughing employees, that wasn't an option.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. So, what feedback have you received on the upcoming budget that you have put out from? Because I noticed as I was watching the Board of Ed meeting there was quite a bit of viewership, which seems a lot higher than normal. Can you talk a little bit about any feedback that you received, or if you have received anything?
Yeah, as far as the budget goes, Liz, I think the increased viewership to our meetings has been a result of not only continued changes, certainly the first 6 weeks with respect to the plan. That was a significant driver of the viewership to the board meetings, and the fact remains that there's very little else that is going on right now with respect to and entertainment, I guess. But
That's true.
the fact is, people want to be connected, and schools are closed, and the only way to be connected with schools is to, obviously engage in some of these meetings. So we've welcomed them. We've absolutely welcomed the viewership. As far as the budget, we presented it on March 12th, and to be clear, we received no feedback over the course of the last couple of months, because everyone obviously their concern was with the health of themselves and others, and obviously the education changes we were making. So that's certainly understandable. Now going ahead and re-engaging in the budget discussion, I suspect we'll hear more. And as and last week when we shared with the board that we would be discussing and setting up 2 additional meetings this week to talk about the budget,
Right.
I know for most folks they're waiting to see, okay, well, how is the budget going to change before I weigh in? But we are very sensitive to what the levy increase will be. At this point, the levy cap is 2.9, but given the circumstances, that is something we're sensitive to. And we have heard some feedback, but again, I think most people are waiting to see what does this budget look like before they weigh in with concerns or reasons for support.
Very good. Well, I thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, and I hope I can reach out to you again in the future.
Of course, Liz, of course. Thank you.
We will reach out again once the Board of Education has finalized the budget for a vote to give you the latest information so that you can make an informed decision by mail. Thank you for watching. That's all for this edition of From the Source. Please stay safe by wearing a mask and social distance.